dead, to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it. Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead. Of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole legatee, his sole friend and sole mourner. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood years afterwards above the warehouse door. Scrooge and Marley. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Hard and sharp as flint, secret and self-contained, and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features and made his eyes red, his thin lips blue. He carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days and didn't even thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. No warmth could warm him, no wintry weather chill him. Nobody ever stopped him in the street to say, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come to see me?" But what did Scrooge care? The very thing he liked was to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance. Once upon a time, on a Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather, and the door of Scrooge's counting house was open that he might keep an eye on his clerk, who in a dismal little cell beyond was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but his clerk's fire was so very much smaller than it looked like one coal, and Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room. Wherefore, the clerk put on his comforter and tried to warm himself at the candle.
A Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Bah, humbug.
Christmas? A humbug, Uncle? You don't mean that, I'm sure.
I do. Merry Christmas? What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough.
Come then, what right have you to be dismal? What reason do you to be morose? You're rich enough.
Bah, humbug.
Don't be cross, Uncle.
What else could I be when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas? Out upon Merry Christmas. What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older but not an hour richer? If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips would be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
Uncle!
Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine.
Keep it? But you don't keep it.
Let me leave it alone then. Much good may it do you. Much good has it done you.
I've always thought of Christmas as a good time. A kind, forgiving, charitable time. The only time in the long calendar of the year when men and women open their hearts to think of poor people, and therefore, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good, and I say, God bless it.
Let me hear another sound from you and you'll keep Christmas by losing your situation. You're quite a powerful speaker, nephew. I wonder you don't go into Parliament.
Don't be angry, Uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow.
Blah!
But why, Uncle, why?
Why did you get married?
Because I fell in love.
Because you fell in love. Good afternoon.
Oh, Uncle, you never came to see me before I was married. Why give it as a reason not to come now?
Good afternoon.
I want nothing from you, and I ask nothing of you. Why can't we be friends?
Good afternoon.
I'm sorry to find you so resolute, but I will keep my Christmas humour. A Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
A Merry Christmas, sir.
There's another fellow, Bob Cratchit, my clerk, with 15 shillings a week and a wife and family, talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam.
Scrooge and Marley's, I believe. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years. He died 7 years ago this very night.
Well, Mr. Scrooge, at this festive season of the year, we find it desirable to make some provision for the poor and destitute. They suffer greatly at this present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessities.
Are there no prisons?
Plenty of prisons.
And the union workhouses, are they still in operation?
They are still. I wish I could say they were not.
The treadmill and the poor law are in full vigour, then?
Both very busy, sir.
Oh, good. I was afraid from what you said at first that something had stopped them in their useful course. I'm very glad to hear it.
A few of us, sir, are endeavouring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. We choose this time of year because it's a time when want is most keenly felt. How much shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
Ah, you wish to remain anonymous.
I wish to be left alone. That is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. Those who are badly off should go to the union workhouses.
Many can't go there, and many would rather die.
If they'd rather die, they'd better do it and decrease the surplus population. Besides, it's none of my business.
But, sir...
Good afternoon. You'll want all day off tomorrow, as it's Christmas Day, I suppose.
If it's quite convenient, sir.
It is not convenient, and it's not fair. If I was to stop £half-a-crown for it, you think yourself ill-used. Yet you don't think of me when I pay a day's wages for no work.
It is but once a year, sir.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. But I suppose you must have the whole day. Make sure you are here all the earlier next morning.
Yes, sir. Of course.
Scrooge walked out with a growl. The office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk then ran home to Camden Town as hard as he could pelt. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, and having read all the newspapers, beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's books, and then went home to bed. He lived in the gloomy suite of rooms which had once belonged to his deceased partner, Marley. On its door was a large knocker which Scrooge had seen every morning and every night since he had lived there. This night, as he put the key in the lock, he saw not a knocker, but Marley's face, which disappeared as swiftly as it had appeared. To say that he wasn't shocked would be a lie. But he quickly turned the key in the lock, walked in, and lighted his candle. He did, however, pause and look cautiously behind the door. He saw nothing, and so closed the door with a bang, the sound reverberating through the house like thunder. He locked it and then walked slowly up the stairs. The light from the candle was very dim, but up Scrooge went, not caring a fig for that, because darkness is cheap. Once upstairs, he checked all his rooms and then locked himself in. He took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown, slippers, and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his gruel. He sat back in his chair and noticed his bell. At first it scarcely made a sound, but soon it rang out loudly. He then heard a booming, clanging noise, and without a pause, a spectre came through the heavy door and passed into the room before his eyes. It was Marley. The same face, the very same, but Scrooge could hardly believe it.
Who are you? And what do you want with me?
Much! Much! I was your partner. Jacob Marley.
Why do you walk the earth, and why do you come to me?
In life, every man should move among his fellows to help and do good. If he does not do it in life, he is doomed to wander after death and witness sadness that he could have turned to happiness. Ah!
7 years dead and travelling all that time?
All the time.
You're chained. Tell me why.
I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it, link by link, and yard by yard. You too bear a strong coil. It was as full and heavy as this 7 Christmas Eves ago, and you have worked on it since. It is a heavy and ponderous chain.
Jacob, speak comfort to me, Jacob.
I have no comfort to give. In my life I thought so little of the comfort of others.
But you were always a good man of business, Jacob.
Business. Mankind should have been my business. Charity, welfare, understanding, kindness should have been my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop in the ocean. Why did I walk through crowds of fellow beings with my eyes turned down?
But Jacob!
Hear me! My time is nearly done. I am here tonight to warn you that you may just have a chance to escape my fate. A chance, Ebenezer!
You were always a good friend to me, Jacob. Thank you.
You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
If that is the chance, I think I'd rather not.
Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun this path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow when the bell tolls 1.
Couldn't I take them all at once and have it done with, Jacob?
Expect the second on the next night at the same hour, and the third upon the next night. You will see me no more, but for your own sake, remember what has passed between us.
The apparition walked backwards from him to the window. Scrooge followed him, and when they were within 2 paces of one another, Marley's ghost held up his hand, warning him to come no nearer. Scrooge stopped. The spectre then floated out into the bleak, dark night. Scrooge closed the window. Whether it was the emotion he had just undergone, or the fatigues of the day, or the dullness of the conversations of the ghost, or the lateness of the hour, much in need of rest, he went straight to bed without undressing and fell fast asleep. When Scrooge awoke, it was dark, but he heard the church bell strike 1. He remembered what Marley had told him as a strange figure appeared.
Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold me?
I am.
Who and what are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Long past?
No, your past. Rise up and come with me. Follow me.
Good heaven! This is where I was born. I was a boy here.
You remember the way?
Remember it? I could walk blindfold.
Strange to have forgotten it after all these years. Here we are at the school, but it's not quite deserted. Look, a boy, neglected by his friends, is left there. See how he reads and loses himself in the story.
It's me. I was left behind and I began reading. I remember. Oh, I can see the characters from that book. There's Ali Baba and the genie. Look, Robinson Crusoe with Friday and the parrot. Oh, I remember them all. I wish. Oh, but it's too late now.
What's the matter?
Nothing. It's too late. But there was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I wish I had given him something, that's all.
Let us see another Christmas.
Oh, here I am again, as a young boy.
Dear brother, I have come to take you home.
Oh, little Fran.
Yes, home for ever and ever. Father is so much kinder than he used to be, that home's like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one night when I was going to bed that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home. He said, yes, you should, and sent me in a coach to bring you home, and you're never to come back here again.
Oh, Fran.
Always a delicate creature, your sister, Fanny. But she had a large heart.
So she had.
She died a woman, I believe, and had, as I think, children.
One child.
True, your nephew.
Yes.
Now come this way. Follow me. Here, do you recognize this door?
Recognise it? Of course I know it. I was apprenticed here with wonderful old Fezziwig.
And do you remember these people?
Why, it's old Fezziwig. Bless his heart. And there's Dick Wilkins, who was apprenticed with me. He was so very fond of me. Dick, dear Dick.
Yo-ho, my boys! Yo-ho! There, Dick! Ebenezer! No more work tonight, it's Christmas Eve! Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here for the dancing!
It was done in a moment, and in came the player with his music, in came Mrs. Fezziwig and her 3 daughters, in came the housemaid, in came the cook and the milkman, in came the boy from over the way, and they all came, and away they went to the music. They danced and they danced, and then there were forfeits and a cake and cold roast. There were mince pies and plenty of beer, and then Mr. Fezziwig and Mrs. Fezziwig joined in the dancing until the clock struck 11. During the whole of this time, Scrooge remembered everything and enjoyed every moment.
Wonderful! Wonderful!
Fezziwig has done very little to make all these folk so full of gratitude.
Very little? Why, he made us so happy.
He spent very little money, just a few pounds. Is that so much that he deserves this praise?
Oh, Spirit, he had the power to make us happy or unhappy, to make us work a pleasure or a toil. The happiness to give us was great, as if it had cost a fortune. Oh dear, oh dear.
Why? What is the matter?
Nothing in particular, but I wish I could say a word or two to my clerk just now, that's all.
My time grows short. Quick, look now.
It is me, when young.
Very little matters to you. Another idol has replaced me in your affections.
What idol?
A golden one. Money.
There is nothing so hard in the world as poverty. I need to pursue wealth.
I have seen your nobler ideas fall off one by one until your master passion to become rich has taken over.
But I have not changed towards you.
Our contract is an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so, until we could improve our situation with hard work. You are changed. That promise we made when we were younger is now fraught with misery. I now release you from the contract.
I've never asked to be released, Belle.
In words, no, never. But you have changed. My love is no longer as important to you. I say again that I release you from the contract. It may cause you unhappiness for a time, but it will be for a very short period of time. I hope you will be happy in the life you have chosen. Goodbye, Ebenezer. Goodbye.
Soon they were in another scene, another place, not large but full of comfort. Near the fire sat a beautiful girl, so like that last that Scrooge believed it was the same until he saw Belle sitting opposite her daughter. The noise in the room was tumultuous, for there were more children there than Scrooge could count. Soon a knocking at the door was heard, and in came the husband and a man laden with toys and presents. The joy, the gratitude, the ecstasy. What would Scrooge not have given to be one of them, to have a child?
Spirit, remove me from this place. I cannot bear it. Why do you delight in torturing me?
I told you that these are shadows of what has been. Do not blame me.
Take me back. Haunt me no longer.
Scrooge was aware of being exhausted and being overcome with drowsiness. He found that he was in his own bedroom. He had barely time to reel into bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. He gave an enormous snore and woke himself up, only to hear the sound of the bell striking 1. He immediately looked all round the bed, for he did not wish to be taken by surprise by a second spirit. Now he was ready for almost anything, but he was not by any means prepared for nothing. He lay upon his bed for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a quarter of an hour, nothing. He then noticed a bright light which streamed under the door of the neighbouring room. He quietly rose from his bed and crossed to the door. The moment his hand was on the handle, a strange voice called him by his name and bade him enter. He obeyed. This room had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and ceiling were hung with crisp leaves of holly with bright gleaming berries. There was ivy and bunches of mistletoe, and a roaring fire sent a mighty blaze up the chimney. Heaped up on the floor were turkeys, geese, game, and great joints of meat. There were sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, and steaming bowls of punch. In easy state upon the couch there sat a jolly giant, holding aloft a glowing torch which shed its light on Scrooge as he came peeping round the door.
Ah, come in and know me better. I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. I imagine you have never seen the like of me before.
I'm afraid I have not. Spirit, conduct me where you will. Last night I went forth and learned an important lesson. Tonight, if you have aught to teach me, let me profit by it.
Ah, touch my robe. Come and see what is happening throughout the land on this night. Let us visit someone in particular.
Why, this is where Bob Cratchit, my clerk, lives.
Where can your father have got to, and Tiny Tim? And Martha wasn't as late as this last Christmas Day.
Here's Martha, Mother.
Come, Martha, come and see. There's such a gift, Martha.
Why, bless your heart, my dear. How late you are.
We had a deal of work to finish off last night and had to clear away this morning.
Well, never mind, so long as you're here. Come and sit by the fire.
No, here's Father coming. Go and hide, Martha.
You come in, Father.
Where's our Martha?
She's not coming.
Not coming? Not coming on Christmas Day?
I'm here, Father. We were just teasing.
Oh,
And how did little Tim behave?
as good as gold.
I hope that when the people in church see that I'm a cripple, that they'll remember who made the lame to walk and blind men to see.
I think that because he sits by himself so much, he gets very thoughtful.
Come on then, everyone. Help to get things ready.
My goodness, Mother, what a goose! I don't believe we've ever had a better.
Hurrah!
That was lovely, Mother.
delicious, my dear.
I am rather worried about the pudding. I'm not sure it's done enough.
I'm sure it'll be fine, Mother. It always is.
This is wonderful, my dear. Come, let us drink a toast. And Merry Christmas to us all. God bless us.
Merry
Christmas.
God bless us, everyone.
Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
I see a vacant seat in the chimney corner and a crutch without an owner. If things remain as they are, the child will die.
No, no, kind spirit, say that he will be spared.
As I say, if things do not change in the future, he will no longer be here. What then? If he were like to die, he had better do it and decrease the surplus population.
I do regret using those words.
Who are you to decide who shall live and who shall die? It may well be that if you were more worthless and less fit to live than millions like this poor man's child.
I give you another toast. Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast.
Founder of the feast, indeed. I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind.
My dear, not in front of the children. It's Christmas Day.
Why on Christmas Day should I drink the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfeeling man as Mr. Scrooge? You know he is, Robert. Nobody knows it better than you.
My dear.
Oh, I'll drink his health for your sake, and because it's Christmas. To Mr. Scrooge. I've no doubt he'll be very merry and very happy.
Mr.
Scrooge.
Peter, I think I found you a situation.
Have you, Father?
Yes, and it will bring you 5 and 6pence every week.
5 and 6pence?
Yes, but you will have to work hard for that. I know I am a poor apprentice at the milliner's, but I have to work long hours for my few pence.
I shall work hard like Martha, Father, and we can all be happy and grateful and have lovely days like today.
They were not a handsome family. They were not well dressed. Their shoes were far from being waterproof. Their clothes were scanty. But they were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and contented with their time together. And Scrooge had his eye on Tiny Tim until the last. The spirit travelled on with Scrooge along the streets, where roaring fires in kitchens and parlours could be seen, and people wandered on the street to meet up with friends. Blessings on it. How the ghost exulted. But now, without a word of warning from the ghost, they moved on and stood upon a bleak moor where nothing grew but moss and furze and coarse, rank grass. It was a place where the miners lived, who labour in the bowels of the earth. Yet they knew how to keep Christmas. There in the mud and stone hut was a cheerful family assembled round a glowing fire. The old man was singing a Christmas song, and soon they all joined in the chorus. The spirit did not tarry here, but took Scrooge to the lighthouse, where the keeper and his mate wished each other a Merry Christmas. Then on they sped to a ship, where the crew made merry. It was all a great surprise to Scrooge, and he stopped to listen and observe.
Come, we have others to visit.
Where are you taking me now? Oh, yes, I see my nephew and his wife.
He said that Christmas was a humbug. He believed it too.
More shame on him, Fred.
He's a comical old fellow, that's the truth. And he's not so pleasant as he might be. However, his offences carry their own punishment, and so I have nothing to say against him.
I'm sure he's very rich, Fred. At least you tell me so.
What of that? His wealth is no use to him. He doesn't do any good with it. He doesn't make himself comfortable with it. He will certainly never benefit us with it.
I have no patience with him.
Oh, I have. I'm sorry for him. I couldn't be angry with him if I tried. Who suffers from his meanness? He does. Always. He takes it into his head to dislike us, and he won't come to dine with us and make merry. The consequence is that he loses some pleasant moments which would do him no harm. But I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether he likes it or not, for I pity him. Here, let us give a toast. Uncle Scrooge.
Oh, well, Uncle Scrooge.
A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to the old man, whatever he is. He wouldn't take it from me, but he may have it nevertheless. Uncle Scrooge.
Come, we must go. My life on this globe is very brief. It ends tonight.
Tonight?
Tonight, at midnight. The time is drawing near.
Have you nothing more to show me?
From the foldings of his robe, the Spirit brought forth 2 children, a boy and a girl. They were wretched, ragged, miserable. Where they should have been healthy and strong, they were weak and pinched. They glared menacingly. Scrooge started back, appalled.
Spirit, are they yours?
They are man's. This boy is ignorance, and this girl is want. Beware them both, if life doesn't change for them.
Have they no refuge or resource?
Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses?
The bell struck 12, and Scrooge looked about him for the ghost, but could not see him. But glancing round, he saw a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him. It was shrouded in a deep black garment, which hid its head, its face, its form, and left nothing of it visible, save one outstretched hand.
Am I in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come? Are you about to show me shadows of things that have not happened but will happen in the future? Ghost, I fear you more than any spectre I have seen, but I know you are here to do me good, and I will follow you. Lead on. Time is precious. Lead on, Spirit.
The phantom moved away, and Scrooge followed. Into the city they went, right into the heart of it. Soon they came to the exchange. Amongst the merchants, who hurried up and down and chinked the money in their pockets, conversed in groups, looked at their watches and so forth, as Scrooge had seen them do often enough. The spectre stopped beside a couple of gentlemen, and observing that his hand was pointed towards them, Scrooge moved closer to listen to their talk.
No, I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead.
And did he die?
Last night, I believe.
What was the matter with him? I thought he'd never die. And what has he done with his money?
I haven't heard. Left it to his company, perhaps. He hasn't left it to me. That's all I know. It's likely to be a very cheap funeral because I don't know anybody's going to go to it. Suppose we volunteer?
Well, I don't mind going if your lunch is provided. If I go, I must be fed. It would be only the reason to go.
Well, I'll go if you do. Not that he's ever stopped to speak to any one of us.
Not another word was said. That was their meeting, their conversation, and their parting. Scrooge was surprised that the spectre should take him to listen to such a trivial conversation. But he was sure that there was some hidden purpose, and he wondered what it could be. He looked around the exchange for a shadow of himself. He gazed at the corner where he usually stood, but another person was standing there. He was a little surprised, but expected that the phantom would soon reveal its meaning to him. The spectre moved on and beckoned him to follow. Soon they were in an area that Scrooge knew was a poorer part of the city. The ways were foul and narrow, and the shops and houses wretched. The whole quarter reeked with crime, with filth, and with misery. Here they came to a shop where piles of rags and ironwork lay upon the floor, and sitting in amongst the wares he dealt in was a grey-haired old rascal. Scrooge and the Phantom came into the shop just as a woman entered with a heavy bundle. She was quickly followed by a second, and then, close behind, a man dressed in faded black. After a short period of blank astonishment, they all three burst out laughing.
Oh, let the charwoman be the first, then me, the laundress, and then the undertaker's man. Oh, come on, Joe. We'll show you what we've brought.
You couldn't have met in a better place. We're all suitable to our calling. We're well matched. Come into my parlour.
Come on, then. What have you brought? I say every person has a right to care of themselves. He always did.
That's true indeed.
Oh, don't just stand staring as if you were afraid. Who but us will know about it? And we're not going to tell anyone.
I should hope not.
Who's the worse for a loss of a few things like these? Not a dead man.
No, indeed.
If he wanted to keep them after he was dead, the wicked old screw, why wasn't he pleasanter in his lifetime? If he had been, he'd have had somebody to look after him when he was dying. Instead of gasping out his last on his own.
That's the truest word ever spoke. It's a judgment on him.
I wish it was an heavier judgment, as it should have been. Mind you, we all knew we were helping ourselves, but he was such a miserable old man, it's no sin. Oh, come on, Joe, open the bundles.
Here's mine. There's a seal or two, a pencil case, buttons, and a rather nice brooch.
6 shillings. That's your account, and I wouldn't give another sixpence no matter what. Who's next?
Well, I bought some sheets and towels, 2 old-fashioned silver teaspoons, and a pair of sugar tongs.
I always give too much to the ladies. It's a weakness of mine. That's the way I ruin myself. 7 shillings and sixpence for you. But if you ask me for another penny, I'll knock off half a crown.
Here's my bundle, Joe.
What's this? Bed curtains?
Yeah, bed curtains.
You don't mean to say you took them down, rings and all, with him lying there?
Yes, I do. Why not? I'm certainly not going to hold back for the sake of a man like him. And here's some blankets.
What is blankets?
Who else do you think? He isn't like to take cold without them now.
Oh, I do hope he didn't die of anything catching.
Don't worry about that. Oh, and you can have a look at this shirt till your eyes ache. But you'll find nothing wrong with it. It's the best he had. They'd have wasted it if it hadn't been for me.
What do you call wasting it?
Putting it on him to be buried in. Somebody was fool enough to do it. But I took it off him again and put him in calico. He couldn't have looked any uglier in it.
Well, he was always miserable. Here you are. That's your reckoning.
He frightened everyone away from him when he was alive to profit us when he was dead.
Spirit, I see. The case of this unhappy man might be my own. I see that my life tends that way. Merciful heaven, what is this?
Scrooge recoiled in terror, for the scene had changed, and he was in a cold, dark bedroom. He could almost touch the bare, uncurtained bed, on which there was a body covered in a ragged sheet. He lay in the dark, empty house, with not a man, woman, or child to say one kind word to him, or weep at his passing. Scrooge glanced towards the Phantom, whose steady hand pointed to the head. Scrooge turned away, for he had not the courage to lift the sheet.
This is a fearful place, Spirit. In leaving it, I shall not leave the lesson it has for me. Please let me see some tenderness connected with the death, or the thought of this dark chamber will be with me always.
The ghost conducted him through several familiar streets until they entered poor Bob Cratchit's house, a place he had visited many times before. There they found the mother and children seated round the fire. It was quiet, very quiet. The noisy little Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner. Peter sat with a book before him, and Mother and the girls were sewing. But surely they were very quiet.
And he took a child and set him in the midst of them.
Why? What's the matter, Mother?
The colour hurts my eyes and makes them weak in the candlelight. They're better now. I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father at this time. Surely it must be almost time for him to be home.
Past it, but I think his walk's a little slower than he used to these last 2 evenings. He used to walk very fast, you'd tell him if he slowed up.
Yes, very fast indeed. He was very light to carry.
And your father loved him, so it was no trouble to carry him.
He's father now.
You went today then, Robert?
Yes, my dear. I wish you could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green a place it is. But you'll see it often. I promised him that I would walk there on a Sunday. Oh dear, my little child.
Don't upset yourself, Father. I came as soon as I could to see Tiny Tim before he was buried.
I know, my dear. People have been so kind. Today I saw Mr. Scrooge's nephew, who is the most pleasant gentleman you could wish to meet. He saw that I looked a little down, and I told him why. He said that he was heartily sorry for it, and that if he could be of any service to me, I was to let him know. He gave me his card and said that's where he lived, and to go to him if he could help. Now, it wasn't for the sake of anything he could do for us, so much as for his kind way that was so delightful at this sad time. It was almost as if he had known our Tiny Tim.
I'm sure he's a good soul.
None better.
And so very kind and thoughtful.
My dears, I'm sure when we remember how patient and mild he was, we none of us will forget poor Tiny Tim.
Never.
Spectre, something tells me that our parting will be soon. Before you leave, please tell me who the man was that was saw lying in the bed, dead.
The ghost of Christmas yet to come led him as before. On they went up to Scrooge's house. Yet he did not take him in there. The inexorable finger underwent no change, but pointed onwards. At last they reached an iron gate. Scrooge paused to look around before entering. The churchyard? Here, then, was the wretched man, whose name he was now to learn. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. Scrooge advanced towards it, trembling, and, following the finger, he read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Am I that man who lay upon the bed? No, Spirit, no! Spirit, hear me. I am not the man I was. I will lead an altered life. I will honour Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all year. I will not shut out the lessons I have learned from the three spirits. Tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone.
Holding up his hands in one last prayer, Scrooge saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrank, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. And behold, the bedpost was his own, the bed was his own, and the room was his own. Best and happiest of all was that the time before him was his own to make amends in.
I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three will strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and Christmas time be praised for this. Look, here are the bed curtains. They're not torn down, rings and all. Everything is as it was. There's the saucepan with the gruel. There's the door where Jacob Marley entered, and the corner where the ghost of Christmas present sat. It's all as it was, except for me, and I will change. I'm as light as a feather. I'm as happy as an angel. I'm as merry as a schoolboy. I'm as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everybody, and a Happy New Year to all the world. What's this? What's happening? Come now, Ebenezer. Go to the window and see. Oh there, boy. What's today?
Today? Why, it's Christmas Day.
Christmas Day? I haven't missed it then. The spirits have done it all in one night. Of course they have. They can do anything. Hello, boy. Do you know the poulterers at the end of the next street?
I should hope I do.
What an intelligent boy. What a remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up? Not the little one, the big one.
You mean the one that's as big as me?
What a delightful child. Yes, my buck.
Yes, it's still hanging there.
Is it? Go and buy it.
Stop having me on. Don't tease.
No, I'm in earnest. Go and buy it and bring it here and I will tell you where to deliver it. Come back quickly and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with it in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown.
Right away, sir.
I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's, but I won't say who sent it. It's twice as big as Tiny Tim. I'll write down the address so the boy will know where to take it. Why, that is a turkey. It's so big, it's far too heavy to carry all the way to Camden Town. You must have a cab.
The chuckle with which he said this, and the chuckle with which he paid for the turkey, and the chuckle with which he paid for the cab and recompensed the boy, were only to be exceeded by the chuckle he gave as he sat down breathless in his chair, and then he chuckled until he cried. Finally, he dressed himself in his best clothes and went out into the street. There were many people about, and Scrooge smiled at everyone. He looked so pleasant that 3 or 4 good-humoured fellows said, "Good morning, sir! A Merry Christmas to you!" Afterwards, Scrooge remembered these greetings and thought they were the best sounds he had ever heard. He had not gone far when, coming towards him, he saw the gentleman who had walked into his counting house the day before. It sent a pang across his heart to think what this gentleman would think of him when they met. But he knew the path that he should take.
My dear sir, how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Mr. Scrooge?
Yes, that's my name, and I fear it may not be pleasant to you. Allow me to beg your pardon. Will you please have the goodness to accept this money?
Lord bless me! So much? My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?
If you please. A great many back payments are included in it. Will you please accept it?
My dear sir, I don't know how to thank you for such generosity.
Don't say anything, please. Come and see me. Will you come and see me?
I will.
Thank you. I am much obliged to you. I thank you 50 times. Bless you.
Scrooge went on his way. He went to church, patted children on the head, looked around him, and found that everything gave him pleasure. He never dreamed that a walk could bring him so much happiness. Next, he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to go up and knock. The door was opened by the maid, who showed him up to the dining room. He turned the handle gently and sidled his face round the door.
Fred!
Why, bless my soul, who's that?
It's I, your Uncle Scrooge. I have come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred?
Come in, come in. It's so good to see you. Come and enjoy our party.
In he went, and nothing could have been better. It was a wonderful party. Wonderful games, wonderful friendliness, and wonderful happiness. But he was early at the office next morning. He wanted to be early to catch Bob Cratchit coming late. The clock struck 9. No Bob. 1:15. No Bob. He was a full 18 minutes late. Scrooge sat with his door open that he might see him come in. He arrived, sat on his stool, and was writing away as fast as he could. Scrooge growled in his old voice.
What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?
I'm very sorry, sir. I am behind my time, but it's only once a year, sir. It shall not be repeated, but I was making rather merry yesterday.
Now, I'll tell you what. I'm not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer. And therefore, I'm going to raise your salary. A Merry Christmas, Bob, my good fellow. A merrier Christmas than I have given you for many a long year. I'll raise your salary and endeavour to help you struggling family. Come, let us discuss it. But first, make up the fire. Bob Cratchit, before you do another eye. And let us drink to you and your family.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all, and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the whole world had seen. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh, and little heeded him. For he was wise enough to know that some would mock him, however much good he did. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He never saw or spoke to the spirits again, but it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. May that truly be said of all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed,
God bless us, everyone.
The cast members of the Milborne Players adaptation of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens were Narrator 1, Richard Matthias, Scrooge, Steve Viewers, Scrooge's nephew and gent, Andy Cutsey, Bob Cratchit, Harry Thomas, Gent and Man, Ron Carley, Marley, Larry LeGroux, Narrator 2, Dot Carley, Ghost of Christmas Past and Narrator 3, Gillian Ireland, Young Fanny, Flora Brackley, Young Scrooge, Gabriel Thomas, Fezziwig and Joe, Rupert Morton, Belth and Narrator 3, Katie Matthias, The Ghost of Christmas Present, Gren Davis, Mrs. Cratchit and Woman 2, Josie Thomas, The Young Cratchits, Flora Brackley, Lizzie Brackley, Gabriel Thomas and Malby Thomas, Scrooge's Niece and Woman 1, Joe Cutsey, Gent 1, Ian Carley, Boy with Turkey, Harry Hawker, Editing and Effects by Ian Carley, adapted and directed by Josie Thomas. For further details of the Milborne Players, full production credits and license details, please visit the website at www.milborneplayers.org.uk.